morning, everyone. Thank you for watching this presentation. We wish we had more in person, but that's okay. We're happy that you'll be watching this to get all the information we're going to discuss today. So I'm just going to share my screen to start this presentation. Let's see. You all can see that. But a little bit about me. My name is Marcella Genut. I am an academic advisor at University of Georgia. I went through the public school system growing up the entire time and had a few jobs in public relations and went on to college. And am quite the expert when it comes to student advocacy, working with students, high school students and college students, especially students with disabilities, to make that transition into a higher education or really life outside of public school system. So what I hope you all will take away today is how you can help your students right now meet their goals of post-graduation, how they can transition to the future when life ends after high school. And students with disabilities face a significant amount of hardships once they graduate. Everything from getting the supports they need to, figuring out what they want to do, transportation, navigating Medicaid waivers and caregivers and all those things. It can be quite a bit to juggle. So my hope is that every student lives a fulfilling life once they graduate. And that way they'll be active in the community and just make a difference in the world. So my overall goal is to hopefully see more students and adults with disabilities out into the world doing their thing. Because I know so many right now just are not motivated and stay at home because they think it's not possible for them to achieve their dreams. So I hope you can be an advocate with your students, encourage them to pursue their goals and dreams outside of class. And I just wanted to go over a little bit about myself. So in 2010 is when I started high school. I had always dreamed of driving myself. I had a dream of going away to college, and all these goals of mine. I knew I really loved to write and public speak. So my mom actually recommended the major of public relations, which I had no clue what that was. Throughout high school, I had countless teachers tell me that I would never move away from home once I graduated. They told me I wouldn't ever go to college, that I wouldn't drive, that I wouldn't be able to manage my own finances or even get into the University of Georgia, which was my dream school. I was constantly in and out of the hospital growing up as well. And that kind of made me have to take either on-level classes or a little bit slower just because of the workload. But I was always really eager to learn and wanted to push and, do well in academics as much as I could. So I had all these goals, and the school system really didn't support me at all in terms of trying to reach those goals. It was more about, okay, are you succeeding in class? Well, that's fine, and moving on. So my mom really encouraged me to do all I could in high school to prepare for my goals and dreams because she was really the person who told me I could achieve them, and really the only person who believed me growing up that I would be able to attain all these things. So I had an IEP growing up, of course, and I really just didn't want anything to do with the IEP. It was like, I'll let you handle that, Mom. And she really encouraged me in high school to start going to those meetings so I could learn how to advocate for myself, say my goals, and meet with the people that would be involved in my accommodations and my care, and everyone involved in making me succeed in school. So she had me come to the IEP meetings in high school, and really advocate for myself on what I wanted my goals to be. If it weren't for her, I really honestly wouldn't have pushed myself to do all of that. In high school as well, I had a couple of instances where I wanted to be on leadership for clubs or do things outside of school to really make a difference. And I heard several students and teachers tell me that I like can't do anything and I wouldn't really ever amount to much. So that only just fueled my fire more of I'm gonna prove everybody wrong. While I was assigned a transitional person to help me transition to my dreams after high school, they had a caseload of like over 200 students or so. They really couldn't spend the time with me that I needed to try to figure out what I wanted to do post high school. So I really had to navigate all of that myself to figure out how I would have caregivers, go to college, and different things like that. So before I went to college, I toured different colleges that I was interested in with my mom and saw which ones would accommodate me the most, and applied to the university system in Georgia, which I did get in, which was really exciting and basically proved everybody wrong. But once I got in, it was a struggle of, okay, how am I going to actually live and, be at a place that is 2 hours away from my hometown, which I had never done before. So I, with my mom and the support of other people, kind of figured out what would work best for me. Thankfully, I had friends that had previously graduated UGA that were with the same disability as me, so they helped me navigate. But if it weren't for my friends and my mom, I really wouldn't have been able to be successful and even go to college. So while I was in college, I really enjoyed leadership roles. I was involved in several clubs. I studied PR and had 3 internships. I also have a disability studies certificate and communications minor. And even though it took me about 5 years to complete, I took a little bit less classes than most students, but I was really determined and did well in all my classes, despite what my teachers in high school thought. I ended up graduating with honors and really, really loving my time at college. So then it came to the transition of, okay, after college, how am I going to have a career? Which is also a really big transition because you lose a lot of supports that you receive in college once you graduate. So again, with the help of my mom and a couple of government agencies, I received support to be able to drive. I learned how to drive and have my own vehicle. I received like adaptive modifications to work software or different materials and things like that. So I was able to be a few communications role with the Center of Disease and Control and Prevention. And a couple of other nonprofits. I was their social media and public relations coordinator. And of course, now we're here today. I am an academic advisor, and I last year started my own business, MG College Consulting, to help students with disabilities transition with all these big life stages that really no one is there to navigate and can be really overwhelming. So that's just a little about me. Here are some pictures of just my journey. The bottom left corner is when I was in preschool. My mom made sure I was an inclusive classroom growing up, so I was the only one in my entire school system to have a physical disability and not a cognitive disability. So I really paved the way for incoming students. We had to learn how to accommodate everything ourselves. So making the bathrooms accessible, having a prayer bro, um, what an IEP would look like, all those supports in place, I pretty much had to figure out on my own, and with the support of my mom. So they also wanted me to go to a different school that supported just students with disabilities. but my mom advocated for me to stay in my school system that I was districted to, that were my friends and my neighbors, so that I would still be with all my friend groups. So from the get-go, my mom was a huge advocate for me and really taught me those skills on how to be my own self-advocate. Once you graduate high school, your parents really aren't able to be involved in your education or your health or government or anything like that since you're over 18. So really helping students and people with disabilities self-advocate is really important so that they can navigate all these different pieces of their life once they turn 18. And that photo above me is my first job that I received in high school. I had actually asked my guidance counselor at school if they knew of any jobs that I could have working in an office. Most of the jobs for high schoolers were like in the food industry, which I wasn't able to do. And my guidance counselor for the school flat out said no. Like, I don't know any jobs, you're on your own. And even some of my own family members thought I wouldn't be able to have a job. And of course, my mom, once again, believes in me, and we made it all work. And my neighbor actually helped me secure that job at his company. So I'm really having a whole support network and community that, is on your side and vouching for you is really helpful and can help you succeed in life. And then I graduated high school. That's up above. That's my family and I. Again, I was the first person with a disability to graduate that didn't have a cognitive disability. So it was a really big deal and a really proud moment because multiple times I was in the hospital and has had many, many challenges. And then to the right is my college graduation. That was a really momentous occasion. The day of graduation, I actually found out I got my first like big time full time job. So that was super exciting. And I just made sure in college as well to set myself up for success post college. So I already like my second year of college was thinking about, okay, what do I want my life afterwards to look like? How I get to work? What kind of job do I want? And so I had internships and job opportunities while I was still in school to make sure I'd be set up for my career afterwards. And then the bottom big picture is actually me with my disability resource coordinator. So most colleges, you're probably not aware, have either a person or a center for their students with disabilities that help navigate accommodations in the classroom. So that was my coordinator, Lee. She also made sure I had like my accessible desks in my classroom, that the buildings were accessible. If not, she would move it to a different building. And it was just a great partnership between the two of us. And I really enjoyed having her on my team and kind of rooting for me and making sure that I was set up at college. So some colleges do have a coordinator for students with disabilities. Some don't. Most public universities do. So if you have any students with disabilities that would like to go into college, make sure they reach out and find that person that can help them succeed. And I'm not suggesting all your students will go to college. Some may go to technical school or get a job afterwards. But there is still that transitional time of trying to figure out what to do, and each student needs to be their own self-advocate. So I hope that we all can do better right now in the school system to set them up for success, so they didn't have to struggle as much as I did. That is the ultimate goal, really. And so what you can do for your students is really just kind of understanding how you're supporting your students right now, what they could use support in. I know a lot of you all are thinking, well, they just have to get through the class. That's all I'm really here for. But each little moment kind of builds up to that point of transitioning out of high school. So really try to see if you have any students that need extra support, or just talking to them, even being encouraging teacher in the classroom, and not saying, you can't do this or putting students down, and just encouraging them really truly makes a difference, because I still remember the negative things my teacher said to me. So even just having a positive environment for your students can make a really big difference. And just be aware of resources that are out there, and hopefully you are while watching this presentation. So I hope you can be better for your students. And self-advocacy doesn't mean that the student is doing it all by themselves. Like I mentioned earlier, with my IEP, I had a whole support team as well in college that was on my side for self-advocating. Different people would help point me to different resources or people to reach out to. So it really is a collaborative effort. And even if you don't know all the answers, I'm trying to say, okay, well, we'll figure out who does, and reaching to your contacts is really helpful, because having a disability can feel very isolating at times. You feel really alone. There aren't a lot of things on the internet for supports. You're not sure where to navigate, how to go about things. So even, you're obviously not going to know all the answers to everything, but doing your best just to be supportive is really helpful to students. So those are some of the things that you can help do. I really liked this definition of self-advocacy, just because I think self-advocacy isn't just based on one person, and it isn't just speaking out. It involves a lot of different components. There's students that, don't have words to communicate. They're usually nonverbal, or we have students that use a communication device or different things. So self-advocacy can look different to a lot of different students, which I really encourage, because everyone is different and everyone has their own way of communicating and expressing their wants and desires to people. But it is important for you to be there to listen to them with a helpful ear, whatever their communication styles might be. And then these are just a few components of self-advocacy. There's different examples of kind of each way that a student can self-advocate for themselves. So each will have a different example for students with disabilities that they may express these ways. So these components are different in many ways. Here's like a little table that I really like that lists out different kind of characteristics and things to look out for self-advocacy. Personal rights you might be familiar would be like educational rights, what parents have the rights to, what students have the rights to, IEP regulations and accommodations and those sorts of things. So your student also doesn't have to be the main self-advocate. Making sure the parent is aware of everything in your classroom is also really important, while they still aren't, over 18 by then. And so self-awareness can also be like, what is their disability? What would they like to do in college, or what are their strengths? What do they enjoy in their classroom? What do they need extra support in? And obviously talk about communication, just also listening, how body language and nonverbal communication looks for each student. And then of course, leadership is just recognizing resources out there. Are your students participating in class? If not, how can you encourage that to become more leaders in the classroom? So I hope you all enjoy this table, and it kind of gives a clear outline of all the many different components of what self-advocacy looks like, different characteristics and ways that you yourself can be a self-advocate for yourself and your students as well. So you might all not know, but a lot of colleges do have support services for students with disabilities. So whenever you have a moment, I want you to check out any local colleges within your area if they have such Service or Research Center for Students. SUNY and the City of University of New York has them, so be sure you can find that webpage and see what they offer. A lot of web pages will have information on housing and classrooms and navigating campus, where students can get prescriptions or therapies. So there's a lot of different resources on those web pages that are really, really helpful for you to know about, and also tell your students about, because they might not even know that is a possibility for them, that that exists, that there is someone to help them to navigate to college. And again, not every student is going to go to college, but also being knowledgeable about resources post-college. Vocational Rehabilitation is a government agency that supports students with disabilities to get a job. So there's a lot of different organizations within your local area and state that will help support students with disabilities, whatever their dream might look like. So if you want to learn some more, these are some of the websites that I had for the colleges in New York. So just make sure that they have a great support system. There's more examples than just these colleges, but I encourage you all to take a look and see what else is out there. You'll notice that probably private schools won't have as many resources as public schools do. So just like students be aware of that difference as well as helpful. So if you get a chance, you'll get all the links to this presentation as well and all these materials. So I hope you spend some time to explore those web pages. And so I just want you to think about, when have you been a self-advocate to your students? How have you advocated to your students? And if not, where can you start? How can you start right now? What are some ways you can implement in your classroom so that every student is being heard, in ways that you can support them? So I hope what you learned today is that most students with disabilities are not supported in the school system in terms of completing high school and, their dreams and goals outside of high school, what lies after they graduate, in that transitional period, and as well as even being encouraged during their time in high school to be able to pursue their goals and dreams. I hope you all will become champions for your students, and students with disabilities, just to feel confident, encouraged to overcome these obstacles so that they can have a future and life outside of school as well. I hope you learned what self-advocacy was and the 4 characteristics and components of self-advocacy. With all of these things in mind, I hope that you really make a change within yourself and your classroom, just to have more students speak out for their needs and wants. It really will make a huge change, because mostly when we have students that are encouraged to make a change, they become great leaders in the community and in the world, and can make a difference. We'll hopefully see more people with disabilities out in the world, in the community, holding jobs, being an active participant, volunteering, whatever it might look like, just to make the world more diverse and a better place for people with disabilities. And I know that's like a huge, big goal and dream, but it can really start with just you, just being a listening ear and encouraging your students. You have much more of an impact than you know you're making. And so just having that positive and kind energy with your students really just makes a difference that they'll probably remember. So here are just some resources and links that I used for my information in the presentation, which you'll have access to as well. And then be sure to let us know your email so that you can have the resources to all of this. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'll send out my email as well. And if you'd like to know more about me or my business, I'm happy to connect with you. I hope you really enjoyed this presentation, and I really appreciate you watching it and becoming an advocate for your students. Thank you all.